The top 5 worst things to say on a first date. What are things that you absolutely do not want to say and maybe say or do instead? Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. So happy to welcome back Sandy Weiner, the dating coach and relationship expert, founder of Last First Date, and the author of Choice Points in Dating. Thanks for being here again, Sandy.
It's always fun to be with you, Silka.
Sandy, today, the top 5 worst things to say on a first date. This is another article you wrote that got my attention. Great title. So that's what I want to talk about today. What are things that you absolutely do not want to say and maybe say or do instead? Anything you want to say before we get going?
Just that I think a lot of us miss these things, that we're not even aware of them. So if you're doing it, don't blame yourself. Just use this information if it helps.
Well, here's number 1. Don't share your insecurities. That it's one thing to be a little self-deprecating, but not really get into insecurities and about whatever. That's a big turnoff.
Yeah. I mean, it seems so obvious, but I
Right.
actually had a guy call me recently and tell me how inferior he was to me, that he knew just from my profile that I was much smarter than he was, and he's a simple man, and I probably don't want to date him. And I was
Mm.
like, well, now I don't. I
Yeah.
mean, we had a nice text exchange until that happened. What you should do instead is if you're feeling insecure, just fake it. It's
Mhm.
just like, don't, keep stuff to yourself. People don't need to hear how you feel about yourself. And there is actually scientific proof that
Mhm.
when you stand up straight,
Mhm.
smile, fake it till you make it, you
Mhm.
actually start to rewire your brain
Right.
for confidence and to
Mhm.
feel more secure. And I
Mhm.
remember doing this in the beginning of dating after my divorce. I would walk into a date and just make sure I would stand up straight and smile,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and even though I was like, he's probably judging me and I don't look so good, and but don't say it out loud, and
Right.
eventually you'll feel it.
The fake it till you make it is great advice. Like you said, there is a lot of information, studies, research on this, and it's not about being phony. It really isn't. It sounds like it is, but it's not. It's just presenting a confident facade, especially when you first meet someone. Eventually they're going to
Mhm.
get to know you, and maybe you will, be much better by then. But fake it till you make it. It works.
Yeah, it's acting as if, and I would say
Hmm.
that's true for any part of your life.
Hmm.
You don't yet feel confident to be a public speaker. Well, act as if you are and just get up there and do it. You're probably not going to be great at it in the beginning, but if you let your self-doubt rule, it's just a thought. The self-doubt is a thought, just like the security is a thought.
Hmm.
And so remember that these are all thoughts and we can change them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just presenting confidence. It's not about faking anything else. So really think about that if you can resonate with this. Number 2, don't be judgmental. This struck me as like, why would we do this? First dates are first impressions, which is why you don't want to come across as judgmental. But the examples you give here, like, don't make offhand negative sarcastic comments about things like what your date is wearing or ordering or how they look. People do this.
Oh, yeah, they do this. Yeah, don't order that, order this. Why are you wearing that? Like, I think you should wear something different. I just finished a book about a relationship like that, where he told her what to wear, he told her what to eat, he told her
Mm.
how she should look, what kind of friends she should have. I mean, these are signs of a controlling person, obviously,
Hmm.
but
Yeah, or narcissist. Yeah.
really judgmental
Right.
people can be subtle, and make offhand sarcasm. Sarcasm is a disguise of these kinds of behaviors. So, what to do instead? Even if you don't like the person, don't say anything
Hmm.
bad about them. Like, just be kind, take the high road. The other part of this is that a lot of people think they should school people about what they should be doing differently on dates. And I used to do this.
Yeah.
You'd probably be a lot more successful if you work through your anger issues before you date again.
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like you've worked through your divorce. Like, no, don't do that. It's not your
Mhm.
job. You're not their therapist. And they would just get pissed off.
Mhm. Yeah, this really surprised me that somebody needed to be told this, that especially on a first date, you do that later on when you're married, you tell them what to do. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
But on a first date, you would be judgmental. That surprised me. So don't badmouth your exes. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but I don't think we can talk about it enough.
Yeah, it's like, oh, my ex wiped me out financially. Man, my ex was a narcissist. What it does is it makes you the victim.
Mhm,
And it shows that you haven't worked out your stuff. It shows that you're into blame and shame and does not bode well for a relationship that you might have with this person,
mhm,
because they still are talking badly. Like, don't talk badly about anyone, but especially your exes. So, what do we do instead? We say, it was a hard relationship. I didn't realize that I needed somebody who communicated really well. And I've learned a lot about myself. I went to therapy. Therapy, sexy word.
mhm.
Self-awareness. Show that you're willing to do better next time. That to me is like such an important thing to share. So instead of blaming, say, I learned a lot. And
Mhm.
here's what I'm going to do differently this time. How about you?
Yeah. In past videos where we talked about this, some of the comments were that, well, why shouldn't I share? I mean, this was a really, really bad, it was abusive maybe, or there's some bad stuff. How can I not share that and then not be authentic? And I mean, my reaction to that is, well, yeah, eventually, if that's important. But again, we're talking about first date, what not to do or say on a first date, not how you eventually build this relationship, right?
Exactly. That's a really important point. And you can say, like if they push you for more information, you can
Mm-hmm.
say it was a really tough relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned a lot. And then they're pushing you for more information. You can say, hey, if we get to know each other really well, I'm happy to share more, but for now, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
it.
I'll tell you
Move
some
on.
other time. We're having fun. Let's not talk about that today. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's because it will ruin it. Well, I shouldn't say it will. It's likely to not, bring up a lot of negative stuff and possibly, ruin your date. So yeah,
Yeah.
always remember that. I'm surprised still how many people do bring up their exes that they don't know that yet. Maybe because we talk about it all the time, it's so obvious, but apparently it's not.
No. And I think people still hold on to a lot of anger and
Mhm,
haven't worked stuff out. And so your stories reflect where you are in your journey. In the
mhm.
beginning of my dating, I thought it was really important to share that I did not have a good relationship and that I, had stayed a long time. And look at me, aren't I great? I stayed a
Yeah,
long time in this marriage. No, it wasn't great that I did it. I did it
right.
because I had kids and I didn't want to just walk out and I wanted to work really hard at it. But I don't share any of that anymore. Like I
Mhm,
wouldn't even think about it because it's
right.
been time. Time has passed. I've worked through it. I've gotten support. I don't
Mhm.
identify with that person anymore.
Person or yeah, again, a very, very important point. Certainly avoid it on the first date. Again, think about that and yeah, leave us your comments. I mean, we love hearing stories about this. Talking about stories, you say here, don't share stories of bad first dates. And that is such a sometimes, or it could be a fun go-to conversation, but yeah, don't do that. Why don't we do that?
So you're right. It can be fun.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who told me he always shared bad first date
Mm-hmm.
stories, and it was such a great connecting point. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is you're focusing on someone else and you're making fun of someone else. And that
Good
doesn't really
point.
bode well for you or
No.
your date. Like,
Yeah.
why do we want to talk about other people when we're on a date
Mm-hmm.
with somebody else? And
Yeah.
so there could be plenty of time for funny first date stories. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of them. They can be fun. But instead, talk about the things that describe who you are, what your values are, some travel stories, something fun that you've just taken up. If you just started taking yoga and what it does for your body, what do you love
Mm-hmm.
about it? a musical instrument that you just learned, that will get you into a conversation
Yeah.
that can build and tell you a
Mhm.
lot more about a person than some first date funny stories.
I agree, and it is a topic because I've been there. I've it just you automatically especially if you like someone, because God, it's so nice to be hey, I really enjoyed talking with you. I mean, it's been a while since you do fall into that, but it can quickly go down the wrong way. Plus, no, like I personally, I don't want to hear about a bunch of, other date stories. I want the attention to be on me. So from that perspective, I get it, but I also get it from, there might be something to jump to. So I guess just be aware of that, right?
Use a filter. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be fun and it's easy to go there, but
Hmm.
yeah, it doesn't make you feel good if the person's saying, let me tell you about this first date I had with this
Yeah.
other person.
Well, number 5 here, good one. Don't compliment your date too much. Compliments are good, but yeah, too much is too much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, profound. So, no, it is too much of a good thing is too much. And what happens is we get so excited. We're finally connecting, we're vibing with this person, and we want to tell them, oh my God, you're beautiful, you're funny, you're smart, you're this, you're that, you're incredible. It's too much. And then it goes to, wow, I can't, you're planning a future with them. You're like going into this whole dream fantasy. What happens is you don't feel seen because this person is just starting to get to know you. You're just starting
Mhm,
to get to know them. You can get a sense of who they are. You can
mhm,
feel like, wow, this conversation is really flowing. I'm really enjoying our conversation.
mhm.
That's a nice compliment. Or you look better than your pictures. You look amazing.
Yeah,
Wow, your skin is glowing. I mean, I love your shoes. Little compliments,
little
right?
things.
Or like you've accomplished so much in your life. I really admire that you've done this. Parse them out little by little. But too much too soon, people get really uncomfortable and they
Yes.
actually don't feel seen. I have had this experience where it was just like the guy went over the top and was getting me
Mhm,
gifts and doing all the like brought gifts to the first date. It's like, whoa, you don't know me. But
mhm,
he was just at the beginning of dating. He was very excited. We did have a good connection, but I slowly lost
mhm.
interest because it was just too much,
Right.
temperate. So what to do instead is to just give those little compliments,
Mhm.
what they've done with their life, what they're wearing, something that feels genuine
Right.
and is tempered and not
Mhm.
over the top.
Yeah. You said brought up a really good point that you just make the other person uncomfortable. I mean, I've had it happen to me, not often. I tend to choose men who don't give me compliments, but the that's for Paul. But when that does happen, it's like, oh God, just stop it. It is. There's something just not so disingenuous, I think is what I'm trying to say,
Yes.
that you just want them to stop it. And I guess once you experience it, because it sounds like, well, why would you complain about giving compliments? But it also dilutes the value of the compliment when you're always doing that. Just like if you say, I love you at, every second, it just dilutes it.
Especially on a first date. I love you.
Yeah, that's one
um,
thing you don't. That's
don't
good.
say I love
Don't
you.
say that. Don't say
No.
that. That's funny.
No,
That's
but
funny.
it's like you don't feel seen. It's that pedestal thing. Like the pedestal, it's such a good analogy because when you think about what a pedestal is, it lifts a
Mhm.
person up and then they can only look down.
Right.
And we don't realize that people are looking up at us and we start to look down on them. And
Mhm.
it sounds terrible to say this, but if you give an authentic compliment,
Mhm.
then that's going to be felt.
Mhm.
Somebody who tells you something about how you've changed their life,
Mhm.
once you've known them and how they've impacted you. Like if
Right.
somebody says to you, Silka, your videos have been life altering
Oh,
for me.
that's yeah, the biggest compliment I can get.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
feels genuine
It
because they've
feels it
watched your
feels great.
videos. Right.
Exactly.
But if they said, Silka, you're the most amazing person in the entire planet, and I want to be you.
Yeah, yeah, it's disingenuous. Yeah, I get it. And I have to again admit that I tend to do that. That's another thing I've learned and that I pulled back on once it happened to me. I go, oh my God, do I do that? Do I make them feel like that? Because I do like to praise people. I do like to support people, and I mean it. I'm not disingenuous, but I go over the top, and I can totally see where that would make somebody very uncomfortable.
And I think that's also, for any people pleasers out there, that's a
Yeah.
common thing to do and to catch yourself
Hmm.
because you've received praise maybe in childhood for making other people feel good. And so
Yes.
that's a role you play. And
Right.
for a lot of the people I work with, we have to work on those things where they don't just accept people so quickly or praise people or just trust people
Yeah.
so quickly.
Well, we're coming to the end, Sandy, and I think it all comes down to, again, we're talking first date stuff, and first dates are just awkward, aren't they? And that's, I think, one of the big things to remember. How would you close out this segment?
Yeah, first dates are awkward, especially if you never met the person before. You
Hmm.
can have anxiety. And so be okay with having some nerves, and
Hmm.
that's common. Don't
Hmm.
try to push away all your feelings. Do prepare a little bit before you go on a date and
Hmm.
remember to steer away from these types of conversations because it's going to help you have a better connection
Hmm.
and be authentic, be interesting, be your best self.
And remember to ask questions. That's maybe the biggest thing is if you don't know what to say, or ask questions. That's a great way to make the other person also feel interested and heard. So Sandy,
Mhm.
thank you. We'll link to all your information, your book sitting right here, Choice Points in Dating. As I often remind our audience, this is like a workbook. It's so helpful. So do check it out, pick it up. If you want to talk to Sandy directly, the link to all of Sandy's contact information is in the show notes below. So Sandy, once again, thanks for your time, and I look forward to our next conversation on Second Act TV.